Aloha, everyone. My name is Tara Lawal, and I'm a perinatal educator with the Pacific Islander Health Board. And welcome to our talk story. Today it's called Holding Yourself with Care, Advocating for Your Needs During Pregnancy and Birth. Um, Today's it's March 31st. Welcome to our Facebook Live. And our special guest today is Dichela Ueki. Dichela, we are so happy to have you here. This is the first time our roles have changed. Usually, Dichela is interviewing me, and now my student has become the teacher. And so today we've asked Dichela to come and talk to us about being a doula. And now you've transitioned into birth work over the last year. We're really proud of you, and I love that you've landed in this space because you've seen me teach a lot about pregnancy, and we've talked and interviewed a lot of pregnant people together. And so I'm really curious to see where you are and how you've landed over this last year as you entered into birth work. Dichela, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your new business and what you're working on and what your projects are that are going on right now?
Yes. I know, thank you. The nostalgia that came out of the intro video, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so real." But alirogoy, hi everyone. I'm Dichela Ueki. I was formerly working with the Pacific Islander Health Board as the Palawan Health Navigator and kind of general manager. But now I'm a independent doula. I have a LLC called Rooted Birthways, where I've just slowly been learning the ropes of what it means to be a business owner. But most of my focus has been on supporting relatives or birthing parents, whether it's prenatal, during labor and delivery, or if it's postpartum, just kind of learning the ropes with every person I meet. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's a big life change from going to working an office job to working an on call service for folks who are going through transition. So, we have a lot to talk about today. I'm We're going to talk about overall pregnancy care, how we advocate for ourselves and for our clients and helping them become advocates for themselves. And then we're going to talk a little bit about birth and what that experience means to both of us. Um, so first, I just wanted to start off with safety. What does feeling safe during pregnancy mean to you?
Mhm. Safety, I feel like it's all the layers that amalgamate into each other, but the main thing is making sure your relative is well informed, they have access to the resources and information they need, which is what I see through doula care, is just offering that direct connection to information, and hands-on support. Um, and I think what I've seen so far is that safety comes with the time with a relative or a birthing parent, just building that connection, learning who they are. And yeah, because I think the biggest thing I've seen in my experience is just within community, we've gotten to a point of like not feeling too comfortable sharing what our needs are or what we're uncomfortable with, which I can understand, especially when it comes to medicine or to the Western health system. But yeah, just safety is making sure relative or self is informed, because I feel like that opens up the floor to just everything else in terms of like what I need, what a person needs, what they're gonna need physically, emotionally, socially.
Yeah. Who are some people that help you feel safe and your relatives help them feel safe during their birth experience?
During their birth experience, the main thing has always been family, their partners, and I think as a doula, recognizing who my relative is comfortable with, that also is really beneficial in the sense that I can then just support their partner and in ways that they can show up for the relative. And like a big example is like hands-on support with the massages and compression, and then because that's such a meaningful time for both parents. So to be able to be in that space and just offer the tools so that they can support one another, I see is really like the most valuable part of being a doula, is just seeing their connection grow and then showing up for each other. Oh, and you're muted. Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
thank you. um, I know I was thinking about that too. I was like, how do we feel trust? So as you know, as a provider, we have to build that safety. And to me, oh, sorry, for me, I feel safety is the same as trust. Like you have to trust your provider that they're asking you to do what's best for you and they're helping you get to your very best self. And
Right,
then you have to trust your partner who knows you best and knows who you are and what your feelings are and what you're capable of. Um, and then you have to trust that they're going to get you to your very best self. Um, and it's at birth where it's like, this is actually where it happens, is the
right,
hardest part of your life is up to this moment, the worst pain you've ever been in, and it's this moment where you're the most vulnerable and you have to just let that go and trust that the people around you are going to keep you safe.
right,
And we look to our partner for that first place of safety. And some people don't have that in their partners, and some people don't have that their um, in their family. Like there's so much disconnect that we are still healing from that
yeah,
happened through COVID. I'm just gonna say there's life before COVID and life after COVID, and we are still trying to learn how to trust people and especially how to trust our doctor and how to trust our midwife that they're going to help us get to our best outcome and our best self. So as we think of this in as doulas and as midwives and as birth workers, I want to be able to help people ask for what they really need and be able to respond and get them what they need.
yeah.
Um, so I'm going to ask you some like hard questions of trying to figure out what people's needs are. Okay,
Okay.
so have you seen? I guess we've all been there or seen this, but have you seen times when people have been disrespected in a medical setting? Can you kind of can you kind of name what does that even look like? What does it look like when someone comes into the hospital and they're not being listened to or nobody is understanding? What does that look like? What have you seen?
Ooh, which lore to pull out? I'm just kidding. Um, I think the biggest reoccurring theme that I've seen is with relatives. Okay, so we learn about contraction timing and then intuition and being attuned to your body and kind of recognizing when is go time to go to the hospital. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen is just relatives who are ready to go and be admitted in for to be seen and to be get prepared for their labor and delivery, have a lot of the times been questioned heavily just in terms of like, well, I think you're a first time parent. I think you're not this far along, so I think you should just wait it out. Things like that of that nature is what I've I've run into. And then also just kind of one thing that sticks out is just communication during labor and delivery, um, when things escalate. And I have a lot of respect for folks in the medical field, for nurses and doctors, um, but just in recognizing that when things move faster, communication kind of falls through, which is understandable, but which is also where I see my role as a doula is that when I see what's going on, I have those conversations amidst the doctors and nurses that are working on relative and just kind of filling those gaps because the last thing I want a relative to feel is like they don't have what's going on in the room in their hands or just being unaware of what's going on to them and their baby. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. I have similar experiences. One of the things that just blows my mind is when they don't believe our pain, the pain level. That's like one of the things that have been most studied is people with brown and black skin are not believed. They just don't believe your pain level. And
Mhm.
so they think, oh, you're fine. You're going to be okay. One of the most horrifying C sections, and it was a crash C section that we had to do. Um, the mom, she just looked at me and she was a dear friend of mine, and she was a young girl. I was like her counselor at camp, okay? And I'm her doula. And
Mm.
she just looked at me and she goes, I can feel everything. And I was like, what? And I'm like, this epidural's not working. And we had to go straight into a crash C section. And she's like, Tora, just sing to me. And I just was singing. And she just says, I feel every single thing. And I looked at the anesthesiologist and I'm like, she is feeling this. And he goes, you're right. And he just finally, it took that long. While they're cutting her, he finally said, time out. And took us all out of the room and just put her under general because she could feel everything.
Oh my god.
Um, and it was so scary. It was, and just like you said, when things escalate, they they don't know what to say. They just grabbed me and the dad and said, "You two need to leave." And we just sat there. And she's like one of the young women I love so much, and we're just watching the window as we come out. Like 6 people come running in to do this crash C-section. They just put her right under. And I'll be honest, I don't know much about C-sections. I've been to, like a dozen, but I don't know what the protocols are when they have to change like that. All I know is how scared we were. And
Right.
I just looked at this dad who was, you know, tall, 6'4" Polynesian man who just looked at me and melted and cried. You just feel so helpless in those moments.
Mhm.
And then it's like, how did we go from this to this so quickly? Um, and so I see, a lot of what we need is the advocacy of explaining what is going on and taking that step back. And, sometimes it's okay. It is scary. And it's okay for doulas to be afraid
Mm.
and to say, I don't know what's going on. But when they're ready, they're going to tell us what's happening. And I remember that was the first time I ever said those because I knew she, I knew she's going to be okay. But because they're under control and there was enough people to help out. And I just had to hold his hand and just sit there, and we watched through the window hoping somebody will give us like anything, any sign of what's going on. um and so that's something that, you know we have to be prepared for as doulas and birth workers, is we're really holding them through the journey that they've never gone through before.
Right.
And a lot of times we've never gone through it too. So we have to figure out, and often we have to take that step back, get ourselves together, and just say, what is happening? What do I know?
Right.
What is happening? Um, because there are ways for us to be able to give this information more clearly. And I think you hit it exactly. You said we need to have more communication. And that's the role of the doula. It really is. And the midwife, like the doula who is, watching both sides. You're the bridge. Okay. So I can tell you as a provider, as soon as something goes on that is really like a complication comes up, we focus so narrowly on the problem. Is she bleeding? Where is it coming? And we have to like navigate to see where is the problem? What is the root cause that's causing this problem? And we see all the other things that are happening around. And it's really hard to put our eyes up and look at a woman in their eye and say, "You are bleeding. It is tanking your blood pressure. We need to stop the bleeding so that you can come back." Like it's just, it's hard to say those words. And sometimes having the doula as the bridge that says, you're going to be okay. Stay with me. Keep breathing. Keep staying where you are and let them do their work. And sometimes that's all you can say. They are working really hard. You're working really hard. You are breathing. You are breathing so well. And I think when we miss that step is when we feel like we're being dismissed and they're just pushing us aside and that we're just a vessel.
Mm.
Nobody wants to be just a vessel growing a baby. We are people.
Right.
Um, and we need to be taught what's going on and asked permission when necessary. Ask to touch me, ask to touch our bodies, like tell us what you're about to do, what's happening. Because you know it's hard right now to be a provider. It is hard to work in the hospital that is understaffed
Mhm.
and so flooded with people, and you only have a certain time limit to get to everyone, and you have 10 other people needing you, and we forget that. And so you know I I just I as you were talking, I just started to remember these moments of how do we take a pause, how do we breathe and ask like what is happening and what we need to do. So can we talk about how do we help people make decisions? How do you help your relatives make decisions in the moment when something's going on? Let's just say the labor is stalled. You've been at 8 centimeters for 4 hours and it's just, they've been very patient. You've tried all the things, switching positions, sitting up, leaning down, more Pitocin.
Mhm.
Um, what what are some of the ways that you can help talk through decisions with your client when you're in the moment?
I like to lean on a lot of different, I guess, mental tools. So one thing that I learned through actually Hummingbird Indigenous Family Services, is the BRAIN acronym. And so early on, especially in prenatal care, when I'm building that trust with relatives, I
Mhm,
incorporate that conversation in terms of, so the BRAIN acronym stands for benefits, risks, intuit. Oh no, a. Oh my gosh, so bad. 1 second. Because I want this to be used. A is for alternatives, I is for intuition, and N is nothing. And that nothing piece is in terms of what is going on and what shift needs to be made. What what are my options in terms of what happens if I do nothing or if we wait? And then the other factors of what are the benefits, what are the risks.
mhm.
and then the potential alternatives. So I think that has been something I lean on a lot with my relatives or with my clients, just in terms of when we're able to prep in the before, in the moment, that's what they lean on. That's kinda what is has been beneficial as or has been served as beneficial. So, going over if we're in the moment and my relative does not wanna include any type of medical support, so, like, Pitocin. So
Or
what are
intervention. Yeah.
or intervention, yeah. So what are the benefits that we've already gone over? What are the risks? But also now we're including in the moment, what is our decision? Is it to move
Mhm.
forward with the procedure or is it do we
And
want
I like that you include N.
Mhm.
Sometimes you do nothing, and
Yep,
sometimes you just have to wait and see. And
yeah,
if here's the thing, if baby's heart rate is good and they're fine and you haven't noticed any decelerations or and mom's not tacky or her blood
mhm,
pressure is not high or her pulse isn't too high, sometimes it's okay to keep waiting.
right. Unless medically necessary is always what
Mhm.
I emphasize is
Yeah.
mm,
Okay. Well, now that we talked about all the scary things, how can we how can we help prepare people by giving them helping them create a birth plan? Um that's something that I really like to talk through with people because we go through all the options. And my job as a midwife and my team, we give them every option that's out there. We're like, you can have a home birth, a birth center birth, or a hospital birth. You have to decide. You have to see all the options that are out there, and we will figure it out. The one thing I tell everyone that comes through our doors is you don't have to decide today.
right.
I truly believe you will birth where you feel safest. And safety is so important. And there's people that really want a home birth, and they're like, oh, yeah, I could do a home birth so well. But then their partner or their mom is like, what are you thinking? You can't do a home birth. And then they start to get really, really scared. That's something that I say, you know what? If you two are not on the same page, that's your answer.
Mhm,
You know, you will not feel safe. They will not feel safe in this setting unless you both are on board for it. You really have to be on board. So, that's just one example of the birth plan. Um, but in the birth plan, we talk about what's important to you and what your goals are for your birth. Um, so can I ask you what are some cultural or spiritual practices that you like to incorporate into people's birth plan?
ooh, cultural a lot of it has been incorporating so one thing I picked up on is different scents, in terms of how to make the space feel more like home and more
Mhm.
comfortable and relaxing. Um, so especially in my massages, I love to use lotions that are infused with, like, plumeria. That has been the biggest one for my relatives is plumeria is the go-to smell. It just reminds them of home, and it allows them to kind of melt into the pain. Um And then other cultural practices that I'm now learning is, like, things with placenta. So, a big question in the birth plan is, like, once baby is earthside, what do we wanna do with the placenta? What's our plan? And then just kinda learning from each relative what practices are in their communities. Like, I had learned that in Palau, we used to bury placentas, but before I was born, so I called my mom and was like, "Where's my placenta buried?" And I guess we had incorporated incinerators, so it was burned, not buried. But yeah.
For me, I see that the more we can make the setting like home and feel comfortable, that's how people bring in their, welcoming. If we can welcome it, they'll bring in their culture into the space, into the birth space. Um, I love, like, there was this one dad who just brought in a cooler full of all her Chinese dishes. So as soon as she finished giving birth to baby, she's like, I'm starving. And he's like, I'm ready. I'm ready. And he pulled out all these dishes for her. And it was all of her favorite foods. And that's how she needed to feel, like, her soul. She had to fill her soul back up. And she did it with food. We've had clients that come in and they brought their whole church in and they just sang and they filled the room and just sang and sang. And I was like, oh, they just prayed in this space with their music and they just cleansed this whole room. We could feel it in the whole birth center. We just heard it. And I'm like, that music is so beautiful. You know, and everybody brings in their own culture and the way they can feel it, if it's welcomed, you know.
Right.
And so a big thing as doulas is to create the openness of, you know, we're walking into the to a hospital room and we're going to create a space for you. Here's a space for you to create your altar if you want to have an altar here. Here's a space for you to bring, you can't burn incense, but you can have a diffuser. And same thing, I remember my birth. I was there for 7 days in the hospital, and I constantly had a diffuser going with lemon and oranges. And I just needed the fresh scent. And every time the nurses came in, they're like, oh, okay, this is the, you know, you just perk up when you feel that. And
Yeah.
so, you know, sometimes you just have to bring in, you said scents, feel, blankets that are really warm, pillows that you like, clothes that you like, your robe, you know, different, the your shoes that you wear or slippers or, you know, different things that will help you feel cozy and like home, right? And so, um, a lot of a lot of your spiritual practices are welcome, and it's okay to pray. It's okay to meditate. It's okay to have the kind of feel that you want in your birth space, in the hospital and in your birth room.
Okay.
Um, how about, can we talk a little bit about, how have you seen people want their baby to be welcomed into the world immediately after delivery? What are you seeing?
Um, a lot of what my relatives have been leaning on is that golden hour and immediately doing skin to skin, which also goes into like what their preferences are regarding cord clamping, and then initiating latch or breastfeeding. But yeah, I'm a lot all my recent relatives had been able to successfully meet their goal of doing skin to skin, which I think with every relative's birth plan, there's just that warmth as a doula or a birth worker that I feel when everything aligns with their plan. And then I like that's just so meaningful to be able to be just like an additional layer of support in getting them to that spot. So yeah, skin to skin, that golden hour, really just bonding, letting baby and the mama and the dad or the parents bond. And yeah, because I've recognized just through conversations or talk story with relatives is that they really appreciate how that downtime is as well, of just kind of,
Mhm.
like, having a moment to breathe and to be able to recognize, like, "I just did this. I just welcomed my baby, and now we're bonding," and just
Mhm.
I a lot of folks like to have it low lights and just kind of melt into the moment. Oh,
Uh,
and go oh, sorry.
we have a question. What is the golden hour?
Yeah, the golden hour is that hour or 2 it can be up to 2 hours immediately after birth. And that's meant has been emphasized as, like, the prime time to really just help bond with baby, let baby and, come to your chest or your breast, And I love thinking of the science behind a lot of these things. So I think of like the synchronicities with baby's heart rate and mama's heart rate or the birthing parent's heart rate. And yeah.
They really regulate each other. You know, you have to get to know each other,
Mhm,
and
regulate,
one
yes.
thing that one of our midwives would always ask as soon as the baby is like all settled and just like we just lay them right on their belly because the baby really will, if you let them go, they will do a breast crawl and they will just crawl until their nose smells the nipple.
Mhm,
And so they will find it, and you just have to let go and just let baby do it. And it happens within that first hour. If everything's chill and calm, they have to grow and get to know how to live on the other side. So my midwife, she would always ask as soon as like we put baby on their chest, she would say, "What do you see?" And the the answer is always different. Every time it's always like, "This is my baby. I waited for you." And they're this close to each other. And when you look and you see, what do you see? And then they realize, I grew this baby, this human. And it's just so beautiful to see
yes.
that this moment, because labor is painful, and there's that one moment of joy that happens, that it's like, it's over, the baby's on the outside, and we did it, and we made it, and we did it together. And so our goal is to protect that golden hour, is to really just, we'll do blood pressures every 15 minutes for that first hour, and we try to leave them alone. We don't we clamp the cord, but we don't take baby from mom or from the birthing parent. We keep them together for that full hour. We won't weigh baby or anything or do the newborn exam until later.
Mhm.
So Katie asked us, for families who are separated from their baby at birth because NICU is needed, any advice on how best to support them? Um, I'll just let you know, I am a NICU mom, and um went through, I prepped for worst case scenario during the birth plan, right? And I when I planned the birth with my doctor, I got to make some decisions. Okay. And this is something that, if you're a doula and you um, are sitting with a family who's high risk, there are some questions you can ask. You can actually talk through the birth with your OB. So we decided, after being in the hospital for 7 days, that it was time. This baby needs to come out, and I would rather have him come out um on our terms instead of in an emergency. I didn't want to do a crash C-section. I wanted it planned, and so we said, let's plan for worst case scenario. Let's do it Monday at 7 a.m. So it's a new set of nurses. it's I'm gonna have three She had three OBs with me. We plan to have the perinatologist come from another hospital in case we have to transfer baby. And so we planned for the transfer to another hospital just in case. Um, and then, because we knew everything could go one way or the other, she did say, I can do a couple things for you. I will have a clear drape. I will talk to you the whole time, which she did. So she kept me going. And um I had what they call a gentle C-section. It was very calm. I was not upset. Like, my husband, I don't know, he did not like it, so I had to make him look at me the whole time. Um, but as soon as baby was born, they put him on my chest. So I did get to do skin to skin. They did do the delayed cord clamping, and then it was time to take baby to the neonatologist, and they assessed him, and he was okay. and then he wasn't okay. And so then it was like, all right, I planned for this. I knew what would happen. And so then the plan was if baby had to transfer, dad stays on baby. He goes in the ambulance, he stays with the baby. My mom is supposed to follow baby wherever they go, and my best friend. So I sent those two, and the rest of the people were with me because we're Pacific Islanders. So there were like 12 people at this birth waiting for me. And so we planned ahead and always just plan for worst case scenario. Even with your doula, just have go sometimes you need to go down the path of like what's going to happen if this happens, if NICU happens. So in the hospital they keep baby, it's only about 6 feet away, and if baby needs extra breathing support, they will take baby to the incubator, which is right there 6 feet away, and they'll work on the baby right there. If they need extra support, they'll take them down the hall to NICU. And that's where dad has every right to stay on baby, stay with them, follow them. We like to have a partner there. It's good. Just take your little finger and you touch your baby and you talk to your baby the whole time. And that's what you train your partner to do. Their job is to stay on baby and everything's going to be okay. And doula's job is stay on mom, stay on the birthing person and help them stay calm. And what I like is when your doula explains everything that's happening, and you tell them, oh, now they're listening to baby, and literally I will take a picture with my phone of them across the room looking at baby, working on baby, and then I'll show her. I'll be like, this is what they're doing with baby, look how big your baby is, whatever. I just take pictures and show it back to the partner, and to the mom. And then, sorry, Katie, I just want to keep up with you. Katie says, I'm a NICU and antepartum social worker and see how cultural aspects influence folks' experience. I'm with parents and families helping them prepare and process. That's the other great thing about NICU. And so the first hour is very scary. And that transition is really scary, but because there's a separation and you don't know what's going on. And so as soon as what happens is as soon first baby will go with the team to NICU. The doula will stay with the birthing person, and it takes like 45 minutes or so to get everything cleaned up, get everything back together, and then have the birth parent go back to the room. And then this is when the doula, if possible, and through the help of the nurses, can communicate back and forth between the two parents that are, one's on baby, one's on on the birth person. So it's good to have other people. And what I love when they bring in folks like Katie and the social work team that will clearly explain what the next steps are, and so as a doula, your job is stay with the birthing person until they're stable. And once they're stable, it takes 2 to 4 hours um, before you can be stable enough to stand up, pee, and then be able to get into a wheelchair and go see the baby. But they do want to get you back together as soon as possible. And then in the meantime, you have experts. I mean, experts working on your baby, making sure they can breathe. That's the number one thing. Making sure that they're circulating okay and resting so that they can grow. Um, when there's a NICU involved, there's a specialist that's there just for the baby. So they'll have what's called a neonatologist that's there with baby that will be monitoring everything, the blood flow, their airflow, um, labs, and how they're oxygenating themselves. And there's different reasons that babies need to go to the NICU. So the big thing is that first 4 hours can be really scary because you don't know what's happening between each other. And so letting go through the first 4 hours of stay with your stay with your doula. Let your doula hold you and keep you ready for the next step of now you're a mom or you're a parent and you have to go help this new one this new little one. um Katie, if you have anything you want to share with us, feel free to share it in the chat. We'd love to hear your experience too. um okay, I'm looking at the time and it goes by so fast. I i wanted to ask you, hi Queena.
Hi, Queena.
Tina helps write these birth plans with us, and she says having a birth plan empowers mothers. It's so important to have a birth plan. What we've noticed in our class, every month we have a new set of pregnant people, and they don't know what their options are. And so that's what we're doing in the birth plan, is telling them all the options and actually giving them reasons on how to choose what you want in in your birth. That's what advocating really is you have to understand what the choices are and then actually taking that step forward to doing what you want and getting the outcomes that you want. Especially, if you don't know that it's okay, like here's something very simple. I don't know if you know, but you don't have to wear the hospital gown, you know? And um as soon as I had my C-section the next day, the gown just did not feel comfortable to me, and you can put your regular clothes back on. And
Mhm.
some people just don't know that. They don't know you don't have to wear that clothes. You can wear your own clothes. Some people don't know you can bring your own slippers. You don't have to wear the socks that they give you, and you can also choose your nurse. If you don't like the people that are caring for you, or if they've made you feel harmed, or they make you feel uncomfortable, they're not listening to you, you can just ask for the charge and just explain to the charge, I don't feel comfortable here. This
Right.
not this doesn't feel right. And that's all you have to say. I don't feel comfortable. This doesn't feel right. And they'll get you someone else. I'll tell you, the thing is, we we want you to have a good experience. We want you to have a beautiful birth. We want you to be safe. And we want your baby to be safe. So, as I said before, you will birth where you feel safest. And so it's okay to ask for those things. Lika likes the socks.
The
She likes
group socks.
the socks. Okay, as we wrap up, I want you to know your voice matters, your story matters, and you deserve to have dignity with your care. Um, and I'm grateful for you, Diela, to take this step in becoming a birth worker and a birth keeper and a holder of the next generation. Um, I call it a veil worker. We're on this side of the veil, welcoming all these new babies here. Um, Lika's asking, how can we get information for your doula services, Diela?
Yes. I will I'll talk with Lika to figure out how we can share that online, but you can contact me.
Do you have an email?
Yes, my email is rbwdoula@gmail.com. I'm also on
Rooted or
Rooted Birthways.
birthways at gmail.com.
Yes, and I'm also
Awesome.
on Instagram and Facebook if that floats your boat. And you can find me at rootedbirthways.org.
Can I ask you um, one last thing in closing, and you close us out? And we do this in class all the time. And I say, what is your one wish for your relatives? As you know, and for anyone who's watching today, who's pregnant and unsure and thinking, what are my options? How do I get help? What is your wish for our listeners today?
My biggest wish, I think, in light of our conversation today, is that each birthing parent feels comfortable and safe through their journey. Um, and in that, really attuning to what your needs and your wants are and being vocal on that. I think that's the biggest thing on an individual level is learning through my relatives and seeing that growth in terms of them moving past kind of the uncomfortability of what their needs are, because your needs are important, especially in a journey like this, such a pivotal moment in your life, that any questions, any concerns you have, it's never a bad thing to raise. It's always important to be able to have the conversations that you want to have so that you feel informed and supported as you transition.
That's so beautiful. I love that you're doing this work. Welcome to the other side. We're thankful for you today. I want to wish everyone a happy week and aloha. Goodbye.
Thank you. What are services? Oh, services I provide. I didn't know if we were still live. I always say it's up to my relatives, so I offer prenatal, labor and delivery, and postpartum care. What I've incorporated into postpartum care is like making meals or just introducing nutrition, but also tying in the cultural aspects of like what foods are warming to you, and then incorporating that into nutrition. I'm going down my nutrition rabbit hole as a doula, guys. So
Yay.
I
Are you
think
talking
food.
about protein?
Yes, yes. So
Protein, water, and salt, please. Okay. I taught you well. Thank you. All right. I know we're going over. I appreciate your time tonight, Diela. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
thank you, Tara, and thank you, Lika Tech. Hey.
Bye, everyone.